Have you ever wondered how communities that are supposed to uplift you can actually end up breaking you down? Well, welcome to this explainer. Today, we are diving deep into source texts that decode the exact mechanics of toxic environments. And more importantly, we're mapping out a totally actionable, structured path to authentic freedom. You might want to grab a notebook for this one, because the frameworks we're going to explore are honestly eye-opening.
So, have you ever felt trapped in a place that was meant to heal you? It's a really heavy paradox, isn't it? The source material we're looking at tackles this super sensitive issue head-on. It details that incredibly confusing experience of feeling stuck or drained or even manipulated in communities. Places like certain spiritual groups, religious circles, or even just tight-knit relationships that are supposedly designed to be your absolute safe haven.
Now, right off the bat, the texts give us a really crucial anchor, just to make sure we're keeping things balanced. This is absolutely not a blanket condemnation. Not all churches or spiritual environments are bad. There are so many wonderful places out there that build loving communities. But the author argues that taking a hard look at the dark truths in the toxic spaces is the very first step to healing. We're going to objectively analyze these truths so you know exactly how to spot them.
Let's jump straight into Section 1, the mechanics of control, specifically looking at the financial trap.
Our source identifies something called seed faith teachings as a major financial manipulation tactic. Basically, this is the doctrine that if you give your money to an institution, it's going to force a divine reward and magically solve all your real-world problems. The texts describe how these environments actually pressure you to hand over completely essential funds. We're talking rent money, business capital, even kids' school fees, all under this grand promise that the sacrifice is going to eventually make you rich.
And the texts draw this really wild contrast here. On one hand, you're being sold this give-to-get mentality, pushing the idea that poverty somehow equals holiness. But the reality? It's completely different. The source points out that while you were left broke and struggling, the folks at the top are essentially building private empires. And the worst part? When your life doesn't magically get better, the institution blames you. They'll say you just didn't give enough, locking you right back into that relentless cycle.
To keep you dependent, these environments roll out some very specific tactics. They will actively discourage you from pursuing worldly education or learning new trade skills, telling you to just pray for a way forward. They'll even label genuine career focus as ungodly. I mean, think about it. If you stay unskilled and uneducated, you literally have to keep running back to them for help. Plus, they induce this massive guilt around having money, making you feel selfish for making any personal progress at all.
Moving on to Section 2, destroying self-esteem and keeping you low.
The psychological conditioning going on here is incredibly intense. In these spaces, the messaging is carefully designed to make you feel like you're a sinner, completely worthless, and absolutely nothing without them. The source highlights that this isn't an accident. It's a very deliberate tactic to break your confidence. Because, well, if you truly believe you have zero value or wisdom of your own, you're never going to trust yourself enough to question the leadership or even try to leave.
The texts show exactly how they erase your personal agency. Let's say you work your tail off, study late into the night, and finally hit a huge personal goal. The institution will step right in and take full credit, claiming it was only their prayers that got you there. But flip the script, if you make a mistake, they weaponize it. They'll publicly shame you or compare you to the so-called good members. The end result is you just live in this constant state of fear, feeling small and totally dependent.
Which brings us to Section 3, keeping you in the dark through manipulation tactics.
The source outlines 4 main tools they use to maintain this iron grip. First up, they enforce a super strict don't question, just obey rule. If you ask a logical question, boom, you're labeled a rebel. Second, they rely heavily on fear, threatening sickness or curses if you try to step away. Third, they isolate you. They'll tell you your outside friends and family are a bad influence to cut off your support system. And finally, they spiritualize every single problem you face.
Let's actually look a little closer at that last point. The claim is always that every bump in the road, whether you lost a job or your business is struggling, is some sort of spiritual attack that requires paid solutions. Special oils, waters, or extra offerings. But the truth, according to our sources, is that this is just a smokescreen. It successfully hides the real-world reasons for your struggles, like a rough economy or just needing better skills. So you just keep paying for spiritual cures while your actual life problems stay completely unsolved.
Okay, so after dissecting all these heavy, complex mechanics of control, the financial traps, the crushed self-esteem, the intense isolation, we are left with the million-dollar question. How do you escape? How do you actually break free from this trap and get your independence back?
This leads us right into our final section, the architecture of authentic freedom. The pivot to freedom really starts when you recognize the trap for what it is. The source notes that, as humans, we are hardwired to want to belong, but that desire can cost us big time. We start making choices just to fit in, and before you know it, you're losing your personal dreams, silencing your unique voice, and sacrificing your everyday joy. And ultimately, you end up looking back on your life with some serious regret. To stop living for everyone else, the text emphasizes a massive mindset shift. People's opinions come from their own fears, their own experiences, and their own limits, not yours. People are always going to have an opinion about what you should do with your life. But remember, their opinion is not your truth. And honestly, as the source points out, most people aren't even judging you as much as you think. They're way too busy worrying about themselves.
To really get free, the texts provide this fantastic, super practical definition of a toxic environment to help you spot the spaces that are draining you. It's basically any place, relationship, or habit that routinely makes you feel small, guilty, anxious, or unvalued. The author stresses that if you ever feel like you are constantly walking on eggshells just to avoid upsetting the leadership or the group, you, my friend, are in a toxic environment.
You cannot grow in soil that poisons you. This is such a powerful metaphor from the source. It argues that if you hold on to these toxic spaces, just kind of hoping they'll eventually change, or that you can somehow thrive in spite of them, you are completely halting your own potential. It wrecks your mental health and keeps you entirely stuck. You just can't reach your true potential if the very ground you're planted in is engineered to keep you small.
So how do we actually put this into action? The source lays out a really practical 3-step path. Step 1, recognize what is hurting you and literally name it out loud. Don't ignore the manipulation anymore. Step 2, set clear, firm boundaries. You have to learn to say, hey, this is not okay with me, or just simply walk away. And step 3, nature abhors a vacuum, right? So you have to replace what you let go of. Surround yourself with good people and habits that actually make you feel alive.
And look, if you're struggling with step 2, the text is crystal clear on this. Setting boundaries is absolutely not selfish. It is pure self-respect. You do not owe anyone your peace. Walking away and saying, I will not accept this treatment is an act of total autonomy. The author points out that toxic environments train you to feel guilty for protecting yourself. But actually, scratch that. Your mental health and your autonomy are yours and yours alone to protect.
As you break free from the mold they try to force you into, the texts encourage you to sit down and define what genuinely makes you happy, what actually matters to you. The source notes that it is completely okay to disappoint people who don't support your real growth. Life is just way too short to spend it playing the role of a knockoff version of someone else's expectations. Be the original you. The people who truly matter are going to love you for exactly who you are, not for how well you follow their rules. Which brings us to this profound conclusion from the text. Peace is your greatest wealth. Forget all those empty promises of immense financial riches through toxic seed faith tricks, and forget the fake prestige of being the perfect obedient member. Authentic freedom is quiet, it's calm, and it's secure. The source insists you have to be willing to walk away from absolutely anything, any community, any job, any relationship that consistently costs you your peace. We have covered a tremendous amount of ground today, from decoding the really dark mechanics of financial and emotional control, all the way to sketching out the architecture of your own personal freedom. So as you process everything we've unpacked from the sources today, I want to leave you with this one question. What is the very first boundary you need to set today to protect your peace and step into your authentic life? Think about it. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll catch you in the next one.